Hi, math students. It's Mr. Hajgassim here. And today we're going to learn how to convert fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now, a key fact that you need to understand is that every fraction is a division problem. So, for example, let's start with 1 over 4, or 1/4. Now, 1/4 is equal to 0.25. And the reason that is because if we were to do 1 divided by 4, we would get 0.25. So if we were to understand that 1 over 4 is the same as 1 divided by 4, well, 1 divided by 4 is going to be 4 doesn't go into 1. However, 4 does go into 10. It goes into 10 two times, the remainder being 2. 4 doesn't go into 2. However, 4 goes into 25 times. So 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. So it's really, really important that you understand that every fraction is simply a division problem. So 1 over 4 is the same as 1 divided by 4. Likewise, if we had 2 over 3, that's the same as 2 divided by 3, which will give us 0.6666 recurrent, which can be rewritten as 0.6 with a dot above the 6, showing that the 6 is going to be recurring and non-terminating. Okay, so if I just clear all the drawings, another skill that you need to be very good at is to be able to divide by powers of 10. Now, if I just move this over here, and let's start with the first problem. Now, I'm just going to remove this as well. This is another pen that I can use. I don't actually need it for this session. So let's start with 6 divided by 10. So I'm going to write 6 in the units column. Now, if I was to divide 6 by 10, what would happen is the 6 will move 1 column, because each time we divide by 10, we're moving 1 column to the right. So this 6 is going to move 1 column to the right. Now, ignore this decimals column. Ignore the decimals column. We're not going to count this. We're going to count the thousandths column, the hundredths column, the tens column, the units column, the tenths column, the hundredths column, and so on. So 6 divided by 10 means the 10 is going to move 1 column to the right. So what we'll end up with is 6 over here and then 0 in the units column. So our answer will be 0.6. Likewise here, we have 321 divided by 100. If I just clear the drawings. So we have 321 divided by 100. So this time we're going to move 2 columns to the right. So 3 is going to move 2 places to the right. 2 is going to move 2 places to the right. And 1 is going to move 2 places to the right. And then we will have our decimal. So that's going to be 3.21. And then lastly, we have 41 divided by 1,000. And this is going to be equal to, if I just clear all the drawings, 41, so 4 tens, 1 unit, divided by 1,000. So we're going to move 3 columns to the right this time. So that's going to move 1, 2, 3 columns to the right. So the 4 is going to be here. And the 1 is actually going to end up in a thousandths column. So if I was to just create a new column here, sorry, it looks a little bit wonky, but this would be our thousandths column. So the 1 would move 1, 2, 3 into the thousandths column. We have 0 tenths. So we'll put a 0 here. We have 0 units, we have 0 tens, we have 0 hundreds, we have 0 thousands. So we can simply write our answer as 0.041. So you need to be very good at this, and we will see why shortly. Now, moving on, so to our first conversion problems. So converting percentages to fractions. Now, what I want to ask you is, what does the word percent mean? So percent. Now, hopefully you know the word cent means 100. For example, 100 years are called a century. or in American currency, 100 cents is equal to $1. So the word cent means 100. So per cent means 100, or sorry, means per 100. So let's have a go at this problem here. So 65% simply means 65 per 100. So every percentage can be rewritten as a fraction out of 100. So even if I had, for instance, say 35%, that just means 35 per 100. Or if I had, say, 1%, that means 1 per 100. So the word percent means per 100. And this is how we can rewrite a a percentage as a fraction. And if we were to simplify this, we can divide both of them by 5. So we can divide 65 by 5 and we can divide 100 by 5. What we'll end up with is 13 over 20. So 65% in its simplest form as a fraction is going to be 13 over 20. All right. And likewise here, again, 35%, we can divide both of them by 5. So what we'll end up with is 7 over 20, and 1% is simply 1 out of 100. We can't simplify this anymore. So key factor to remember is that percentages to fractions is simply writing the percentage as a fraction out of 100 and then simplifying that fraction. So write the percentage as a fraction out of 100 and then simplify the fraction to get a fraction in its simplest form. So let's do some examples here. I suppose before we do examples, there's another one that I just want to quickly cover. It's percentages to decimals. So we've got 65%. Now we said 65% is the same as 65 over 100. Now 65 over 100 is the same as 65 divided by 100. So 65 divided by 100 is going to give us 0.65. So to convert a percentage into a decimal, we simply need to divide by 100. Likewise, if we were to go from the decimal into the percentage, we would have to multiply by 100, because 0.65 times 100 gives us 65, which is the same as 65 per, well, 65 is not the same as 65%, but if we were to convert this into a percentage, we would multiply it by 100, which would be 65%, because 65% is the same as 65 over 100, which is the same as 65 divided by 100. So to go from decimals to a percentage, we simply multiply by 100. If I just clear the drawings. All right, so it says here, write the following as a fraction in its simplest form and as a decimal. So 66%. Well, I can rewrite this as 66 over 100. That's the fraction, because 66% means 66 per 100. If I was to simplify this, I can divide both of them by 2. So that will give me 33 over 50. So that's the fraction in its simplest form. Now, if I was to write it as a decimal, we want to use this bit over here. So 66 over 100 is the same as 66 divided by 100, which is going to give us 0.66. So the fraction in its simplest form is over here, and the decimal is over here. So 66% is equal to 33 over 55, over 50, I should say, which is equal to 0.66. So that's the percentage, that's the fraction, and that's the decimal over here. Let's do one more example. 23%. Again, I can rewrite 23% as 23 over 100. I can't simplify this anymore, so I will leave it like this. Now, as a decimal, well, 23 over 100 is the same as 23 divided by 100, because every fraction is a division problem. Therefore, 23 divided by 100 is 0.23. So again, I can say 23% is equal to 23 over 100, which is equal to 0.23. So I have the percentage, the fraction, and the decimal. Let's do one more example. So 26.5%. So I can rewrite this as 26.5 over 100. Now, one thing that you need to be very careful with is that we can't have a decimal on a fraction. We can't have a decimal on a fraction. So what I can do is either multiply both of them by 10. Whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. And the reason why I multiply the top, or the numerator, I should say, by 10 is because I want to turn it into a whole number. So what I'll end up with is 265 over 1,000. Now I can simplify this because I know 5 goes into both of these two numbers. 265 ends in a 5, so it's a multiple of 5, and 1,000 ends in a 0, which is also going to be a multiple of 5. So both of them can be divided by 5, and then we can simplify further if possible. Alternatively, rather than multiplying by 10, I could simply double 26.5 to get a whole number, and then double the 100 as well. So another way of doing this, if I just clear what I've done here. So another way of doing this is simply doubling both the numerator and the denominator. So now I will get 26.5 times 2 is going to be 53. And then 100 times 2 is going to be 200. And that's going to be our final answer. We can't simplify 53 over 200 anymore. So this is our final fraction. Now, like I said, it's really important to realize that we can't leave our fraction as a decimal. However, if this is just part of our workings, we can write the percentage as a fraction with a decimal. But so long as this is not our final answer and it's simply a step in our calculations. So be mindful of that, please. Now, finally, to convert 26.5% into a decimal, well, 26.5 divided by 100 is going to be 0.265. So to write this out, 26.5% is equal to 53 over 200, which is equal to 0.265. All right, and moving on, Now, percentages to fractions. Now, to go from a percentage to a fraction, what I need to do, in fact, this is potentially an error there. I do apologize. That should be decimals to fractions. So I do apologize sincerely. Just going to cross this off and write decimals to fractions, because we just did percentages to fractions. So to go from decimals to fractions, we have to take an extra step. And the extra step is to first convert the decimal into a percentage and then go from the percentage into a fraction. Now, we said to go from a decimal to a percentage, we have to multiply the decimal by 100. So for example, write 0.64 as a fraction in its simplest form. So 0.64 as a fraction. Now, before I go into the fraction, or before I convert into a fraction, I'm going to convert this into a percentage. So I'm going to multiply 0.64 by 100. That's going to give me 64%. Now, 64% converted into a fraction is going to be 64 over 100. Now I can simplify this. 64 over 100, we can divide both of them by 4. So what I'll end up with is 16 over 25. So 64 over 100 can be simplified to 16 over 25 because I can divide both numbers by 4. Or in other words, 4 goes into 64 and 4 goes into 100. So over here, we can say 0.64 is equal to 16 over 25. And that will be our final answer. Let's do some more examples. So convert the decimals into fractions in their simplest forms. So let's start with 0.6. So 0.6 to a fraction. Well, firstly, I'm going to convert this into a percentage. So I'm going to multiply 0.6 by 100. That's going to give me 60%. 60% is the same as 60 over 100, which can be simplified to 6 over 10, which can be simplified to 3 over 5. So 0.6 is equal to 3 over 5 in its simplest form. Let's do another one. 0.07. I'm just going to clear all the drawings. So again, we multiply 0.07 by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So 0.07 times 100 is going to be 7%. And 7% is the same as 7 over 100. And this is our fraction in its simplest form because we can't simplify this anymore. So our final answer is going to be 0.7 is equal to 7 over 100. All right, and let's do some more examples. So we've got 0.48 here. Once again, I'm going to convert this into a fraction, into a percentage. So I'm going to multiply 0.48 by 100. That's going to give me 48%. And I'll write equal. 0.48 is equal to 48%. 48% is the same as 48 over 100. We can divide both numbers by 4. So what I'll get is 12 over 25 as my final fraction, or as my simplified fraction, I should say. So 0.48 is equal to 12 over 25. Likewise, just to do a recap, if I was to go from, actually, we'll wait and we'll do this on the next slide. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. So I will just hold back. And let's do one more example. So we've got 1.6. So if I multiply 1.6 by 100, I will get 160%. Now, you would have learned that percentage is usually out of 100. However, we can have a percentage of 160%. For example, let's say when there's a percentage increase, the percentage increase could be greater than 100%. So don't be put off by this because we have 160% and you've been taught previously that percentage is out of 100. Now, percentage is out of 100, but amounts can increase by more than 100%. Now, we can rewrite 160% as 160 out of 100, 160 per 100. Now, if I was to simplify this, what I will get is 16 over 10, which is the same as 8 over 5. And we want this fraction in its simplest form, so I can either leave it as 8 over 5 or write it as a mixed number. So 5 goes into 8 one time, and there's going to be 3 fifths remaining. So 1.6 is equal to 8 over 5, or 1 3 fifths. All right, and let's move on. So again, just before I do move on, when we're converting decimals into fractions, we have to take an extra step. We have to go from decimals to percentages, and then from percentages to fractions. So remember this process, please. All right. And moving on. So fractions to percentages now. Fractions to percentages. Now we said percentage means per 100. So what we need to do is to rewrite our fractions as fractions out of 100. That will make life a lot easier. So 25 goes into 100 4 times, so we have to multiply 25 by 4 to get to 100. Therefore, we would do the same to 8. 8 times 4 is equal to 32. Therefore, 8 over 25 is equal to 32 over 100, which is equal to 32%. 32 per 100 is the same as 32%. So 8 over 25 is the same as 32%. Likewise here, now I have 27 over 30. Now I can't go directly to 100. Well, I suppose I can, but I would have to multiply by a decimal, and that's going to be a little bit tricky. So see if you can convert 30 into a factor of 100. Now I can divide both of these numbers by 3. I've written 9, but I should have written 3. I can divide both numbers by 3. What I'll end up with is 27 divided by 3 is 9, and 30 divided by 3 is 10. Now I have a denominator that is a factor of 100. 10 goes into 100. So what I need to do is multiply 10 by 10 to get to 100. So I would have to do the same to the 9. 9 times 10 is 90 over 100. So 90 over 100 is the same as 90%. So 27 over 30 is equal to 90%. So key facts to remember is when we're converting fractions to percentages, we need to convert the denominator into 100, and then we need to look out for factors of 100. Is our denominator a factor of 100? Or can we convert the denominator into a factor of 100? Because once you have a denominator that's a factor of 100, you can convert that denominator into 100. So the numbers we're looking for, the factors that we're looking for are 2, 4, 5, 10, 25, and 50. All of these numbers can be multiplied by another number to get us up to 100. Or you can think about it as all of these numbers go into 100. One more that I missed out over here. So I missed out 20 as well. So we would have 2, 4, 5, 10, 20, 25, and 50. All right, let's do some more examples. So convert the fractions into percentages. I have 8 over 20. 8 over 20. So I'm going to write this as 8 over 20. Now 20 is a factor of 100. So I need to multiply 20 by 5 because 20 goes into 100 5 times. So 20 times 5 gives us 100. So I would have to do the same to the 8. 8 times 5 is 40. Therefore, 8 over 20 is 40 over 100, which is 40%. So we converted the fraction as a fraction out of 100, and that helped us to convert the fraction into a percentage. Right, let's do another example. 16 over 25. I'm just going to clear all my writings for the above example. Now again, 16 over 25, is 25 a factor of 100? Does 25 go into 100? Yes, it does. It goes into 100 4 times. So I would have to multiply both the denominator and the numerator by 4. So 16 times 4 is going to be 64. 64 over 100 is going to be 64%. All right, let's do one more. Now we've got 16 over 64. So this one is a little bit tricky. This one is a little bit tricky, but hopefully we can do this. So 16 over 64. Well, I can divide both of these numbers by 16. So what I'll end up with is 16 divided by 16 is 1, and 64 divided by 16 is equal to 4. Now I have a quarter. Now hopefully you should be able to know that a quarter is always equal to 25%. However, the reason behind that is that if we were to multiply 4 by 25, we would have to multiply the 1 by 25. What we'll end up with is 25 over 100, which is equal to 25%. So often when they give you a fraction and they tell you to write it as a percentage, especially in non-calculator questions, you will be able to simplify the fraction into a fraction which has a denominator that is a factor of 100. So again, 16 over 64. Now you might have been able to visually see that this is equal to a quarter, but if you weren't able to see that this is equal to a quarter, hopefully you were able to simplify it so that you reach 1/4. And now that you have a quarter, the 4 is a factor of 100. Therefore, 4 times 25 gives us 100. 1 times 25 gives us 25. So 25 out of 100 is equal to 25%. All right. And let's move on. So let's do some questions here with worded problems. So it says a school has 3 year groups. We've got years 7, years 8, and years 9. Now, what the question tells us is 30% of the students are in year 7, 36% of the students are in year 8. What fraction of the students at the school are in year 9? Well, as a percentage, we know in total there are 66 students in year 7 and 8, so the remainder are going to be in year 9. So 100%, the total number of students minus 66%, is going to leave us with 34%. So there are 34% of the students who are in year 9. So year 9 is equal to 34%. Now the question tells us what fraction of the students in the school are in year 9. So we need to convert 34% into a fraction. So that's going to be 34 over 100, which will simplify to, if I was to simplify this, it would be 17 over 50. So the answer is 17 over 50 students are in year 9. That's the fraction of students in year 9. All right, and moving on. So James sat an English quiz. He scored 7 out of 8. What percentage did he get right? So let's think about this. This one's a little bit tricky because 7 out of 8, we can't really convert 8 into a, we can't convert 8 into 100. Well, again, we can, but we would have to multiply it by a decimal. So that's slightly tricky. So what I would do with this problem, is, well, I know that 1/4, or in fact, I know that 1/2 is equal to 50%. So 1/4 is going to be equal to 25%. 1/8 is going to be equal to 12.5%. If I know this fact, what I will know is that James sat the English quiz, he scored 7 out of 8. So in total, he lost 1 mark out of 8. So he lost 12.5%. So what I can do is 100% minus 12.5%. That's going to give me 87.5%. So he got 87.5% in his test. Now, this one was a bit of a tricky one, but I just wanted to show you how, if you know one fraction, especially when it comes to halves, quarters, and eighths, you will be able to use your knowledge to deduce what 1/8 is equal to, and then work out what, for instance, 7/8 is equal to, or what 6/8 is equal to, and so on. One last example as well. Again, this one's going to be a little bit unconventional and tricky. It says in a crate there are 40 apples. 3 of the apples are bad. What percentage of the apples in the crate are good? So 37 out of the 40 apples are good. And now we need to write down what percentage of the apples are good. Now 37 over 40 Well, again, we can't go directly from 40 to 100 without multiplying by a decimal. So what I would prefer to do is to convert this 40 into a factor of 100, which is 20. Now, if I divide 37 by 2, what I'll get is a decimal. So um, uh, I will get 15 plus 3.5, 18.5 out of 20. Now, 18.5 out of 20, we can't leave our answer as a decimal, a fraction as a decimal, and this ain't going to be our final answer anyway. So this is just part of the process. So as long as it's part of the process, you can write a decimal as a you can write a decimal on top of a fraction or even as the numerator. Now what I need to do is multiply. Sorry, I said as the numerator. You can either write a decimal as a numerator or as the denominator, so long as it's just part of the process. It's not your final answer. Now 20 is a factor of 100. So if I multiply 20 by 5, I will get a fraction out of 100. I can then multiply this by 5. So 18.5 times 5, I suppose we can do long multiplication here. And I'm just going to do 185 times 5. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 2 is 42. 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 4 is 9. And we have one number after the decimal, so that's going to give us 92.5. So 92.5 out of 100 is equal to 92.5%. So again, I have a decimal as part of my fraction, but that's not my final answer. That's just part of the process that I'm carrying out to get to my answer. So my answer is going to be 92.5% were good. Right, boys and girls, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you, and bye.